Imagine a time when knowledge was power, literally, where figures cloaked in mystery, wisdom, and whispers of magic walked among us. Wizards weren't always just fantasy. They were scientists, healers, mystics, and sometimes outcasts. But where did these stories begin? And how did they evolve into the spellbinding legends we know today? In this video, we're diving into the spellbinding origins of wizards, unveiling the real history behind the myths, exploring ancient traditions, and revealing the secrets of figures who blurred the line between science and sorcery. Stick around, because what you'll discover might just change how you see magic forever. Ready to turn back time? Before the term wizard ever existed, ancient cultures across the world had figures who acted as intermediaries between the natural and supernatural realms. Shamans in Siberia and Central Asia, for example, were among the earliest wizards, people believed to have the power to heal, see the future, and communicate with spirits. The Celts of Europe revered druids, who were not only spiritual leaders but also scholars, judges, and healers. While druids didn't wield wands, they were believed to possess mystical knowledge that connected them to the forces of nature. Similarly, the ancient Greeks had oracles like the famous Pythia of Delphi, who channeled the god Apollo to deliver cryptic prophecies. These early spiritual guides set the stage for the wizard archetype, blending mysticism, wisdom, and the pursuit of hidden knowledge. They often held positions of great respect in their communities, serving as advisors to rulers or healers to the sick. Rituals involving chants, fire, and even psychedelic substances were common tools to achieve altered states of consciousness, which they believed connected them to otherworldly powers. Shamans and seers weren't merely individuals. They were the focal points of entire belief systems. Their presence offered hope and explanations in a world filled with uncertainties and challenges. Imagine the awe of an ancient tribe seeing their shaman perform what seemed like miracles, healing wounds, predicting natural disasters, or guiding hunts. Interestingly, many early traditions emphasized a strong connection between these mystical figures and nature. Trees, stones, and rivers were often seen as conduits for their power. These ideas would later resurface in modern depictions of wizards, with their reliance on staffs, enchanted forests, and secret groves. Ancient seers also embodied a duality, seen as both protectors and figures of mystery, sometimes feared for their powers. The notion of a wise person with a direct link to the spiritual realm is universal, cutting across cultures and continents. From the indigenous medicine men of the Americas to the African sangomays, the concept of a magical intermediary is as old as humanity itself. As Europe transitioned into the Middle Ages, the concept of the wizard began to crystallize. Alchemists, for example, were the scientists of their time, experimenting with metals, chemicals, and elixirs in pursuit of the philosopher's stone.
No way!
A substance believed to grant immortality or turn base metals into gold. One of the most famous alchemists was John Dee, an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. Dee was not just a mathematician and astronomer. He also delved into mysticism, attempting to communicate with angels using a system of symbols he called Enochian. His blend of science and magic made him a quintessential wizard of the time. At the same time, folklore brought us the image of the sorcerer, individuals who supposedly wielded dark powers and could curse or bewitch others. These ideas were fueled by fear of the unknown and often led to witch hunts during the later centuries. The wizard's reputation in this era was a complex mix of respect, fear, and suspicion. In fact, some alchemists walked a fine line between science and sorcery. For instance, Nicolas Flamel, a 15th century French alchemist, became a legend for supposedly discovering the philosopher's stone. While much of his life is shrouded in mystery, His story inspired countless myths about the potential of magic and immortality. During this period, the line between good magic and dark magic was incredibly blurred. Some wizards were revered as healers and wise men, while others were feared for their perceived dealings with demons. This dual perception laid the foundation for the fictional wizards we see today, who often walk the line between light and dark. The Church played a significant role in shaping the narrative around magic and wizardry. Alchemists and mystics who worked in secret were often accused of heresy, leading to trials and persecutions. Yet some wizards managed to survive and thrive, hiding their knowledge within cryptic texts and symbols. It's fascinating to consider how the wizard evolved during this time, from a figure of practical experimentation to a mysterious and sometimes feared sorcerer. Medieval Europe gave us the most enduring image of the wizard, as both a seeker of knowledge and a wielder of power. And despite the dangers, the pursuit of mystical knowledge continued, with wizards laying the groundwork for modern science and medicine. The fascination with alchemy and sorcery also spread to literature during this period. Stories of magical feats, forbidden experiments, and wise hermits became common themes, further cementing the wizard as a figure of awe and wonder. As the Middle Ages unfolded, wizards became central figures in European folklore, often walking a fine line between revered scholars and feared sorcerers. But were they really magicians or simply scientists misunderstood by their contemporaries? The medieval wizard archetype that we know today owes much to the alchemists of this period. These were individuals dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, primarily in chemistry and medicine. But their work often carried a shroud of mysticism. Take the quest for the Philosopher's Stone, a mythical substance said to turn base metals into gold and grant eternal life. Was this a magical pursuit? Not quite. Alchemists were experimenting with early chemistry, laying the groundwork for modern science. Yet these pursuits weren't without risk. Alchemists and scholars were sometimes accused of heresy or witchcraft, particularly by religious authorities wary of anything that seemed to challenge divine power. A fine example is Roger Bacon, a 13th century English friar. His studies in optics, astronomy, and language were revolutionary for their time, but his association with mystical texts earned him the nickname Dr. Mirabilis, or Wonderful Teacher. The Church's influence during this period played a significant role in how wizards were perceived. Those practicing what we'd now call science risked persecution if their findings veered too close to challenging religious dogma. This fear was only compounded by the rise of the Inquisition in the 12th century, which sought to root out heretics, witches, and those dabbling in what was perceived as the dark arts. Interestingly, while alchemists sought tangible results, medieval wizards were also depicted as masters of divination and astrology. Figures like Merlin, who emerged from Welsh folklore, became the prototype for the wise, mystical advisor archetype. Merlin's tales blended prophecy, magic, and political intrigue, establishing him as the ultimate medieval wizard. But it wasn't just fiction. Many rulers of the time consulted astrologers before major decisions, blurring the line between superstition and strategy. As the medieval period progressed, the concept of the wizard evolved further. While some wizards were celebrated for their wisdom, others were feared as agents of chaos. The portrayal often depended on who was telling the story. To kings and nobles, a wizard might be a trusted advisor. To the common folk, a wizard could just as easily be a scapegoat for a failed harvest or an unexplained illness. The Renaissance was a time of intellectual rebirth, but it was also a golden age for wizards, or as they were now often called, magi. These figures were scholars, scientists, and mystics who sought to unlock the mysteries of the universe through both reason and esoteric practices. One of the most famous magi of this era was John Dee, an English mathematician, astronomer, and occultist. Dee served as an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, yet he spent much of his life attempting to communicate with angels. Using a scrying mirror and a set of mystical symbols known as the Enochian language, Dee believed he could gain divine knowledge that would benefit humanity. But Dee wasn't alone. The Renaissance saw a resurgence of interest in Hermeticism, a philosophical and spiritual tradition rooted in ancient texts attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, a figure said to combine the wisdom of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. Hermetic texts emphasized the idea that humans could achieve godlike understanding through study and meditation, and they became a cornerstone for Renaissance magi. Interestingly, Renaissance magi weren't limited to mysticism. Figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Galileo Galilei, though not wizards in the traditional sense, were often seen as possessing almost supernatural intellect. Their ability to unravel the secrets of nature through observation and experimentation mirrored the wizard archetype. This period also gave rise to grimoires, books of magic spells, rituals, and instructions for summoning spirits. Grimoires like the Key of Solomon became highly sought after, blending ancient magical traditions with Renaissance-era knowledge. These texts further cemented the wizard's image as a figure with access to forbidden knowledge. However, not everyone embraced this mystical pursuit. The Protestant Reformation and the Catholic Counter-Reformation cast a skeptical eye on such practices, leading to increased scrutiny and, in some cases, persecution of those considered magicians. By the time we reach the modern era, the image of the wizard had undergone a significant transformation. No longer confined to history books or folklore, wizards became a central figure in literature, art, and eventually cinema. But how did this shift happen, and what does it say about our enduring fascination with these figures? The 19th and 20th centuries saw a revival of interest in the occult, with figures like Aleister Crowley and organizations like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn gaining prominence. Crowley, a self-proclaimed magician, pushed the boundaries of spirituality and mysticism, blending ancient rituals with modern ideas of personal empowerment. While controversial, his work helped keep the image of the wizard alive in the public imagination. At the same time, wizards began to take on new forms in literature. J.R.R. Tolkien's Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings and J.K. Rowling's Dumbledore in Harry Potter brought wizards into the fantasy genre, making them wise mentors and protectors. These characters weren't just about casting spells. They embodied wisdom, bravery, and a connection to forces beyond human comprehension. But the influence of wizards isn't limited to fiction. Modern wizards in fields like technology and science continue to inspire awe. Think of innovators like Nikola Tesla, whose groundbreaking work with electricity earned him a reputation as a wizard of invention. Or Steve Jobs, whose visionary ideas transformed the way we interact with technology. These modern wizards might not wield staffs, but their impact on the world feels no less magical. Today, wizards remain a symbol of our curiosity and our quest for knowledge. Whether we see them as characters in a story, historical figures misunderstood by their peers, or modern innovators pushing the boundaries of what's possible, the wizard archetype continues to captivate us. Perhaps that's because, deep down, we all long for a little magic in our lives. Thanks for watching Turn Back Time. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest releases. We've got plenty more fascinating stories to uncover. Until next time, stay curious.